So far, we have theoretically learned about variables, and the one-liner that we learned from the previous video is variables are used to store data. Now, when we talk about data, obviously we are talking about the digital data, and digital data can have multiple types. So what are the data types that are available in Python? We will be learning all of these data types one by one in comprehensive way. So don't worry about that. But let's just go through these things. Let's just go through the names of these data types. And let's see what are these things. So we have mainly, I have divided these data types into two parts. One is the basic data types that we are going to learn right now, starting from this video. And then we have advanced data types. Don't worry, we're not going to skip these advanced data types. We are surely going to learn these data types as well, but in later modules. So in this module, we are going to focus on basic data types. So if we just skim through the advanced data types, they are lists that is used to store multiple types of data and multiple instances of data. Then we have tuples, then we have sets, and then we have dictionaries. All of these advanced data types are used to store multiple instances or multiple elements of the data, right? Yeah, that's it about it for now. That's it about advanced data types for now. We will talk about advanced data types in very much comprehensive details later on. Let's focus on basic data types. So in basic data types, first of all, we have numbers. So integer and number further have two types, integer and floats. So integer and floats, they both belong to the basic data type family, and they both belong to the numerical data type family, right? And then we have strings that is used to store English characters, any character, not only English, but any character that is there on your keyboard. And then we have Boolean data type that can only store true or false, 0 or 1, yes or no, right? Where we have only two possibilities, we use Booleans. So I think enough of theoretical explanations. Let's jump into the practical thing. And if we want to have the look on basic data types, so this is how the basic data types look like. So integers are like 2, 3, 4, 5, 100, 200, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, -2, -5, whatever it is. So if it is a whole number, it is going to be an integer either. It is going to be a positive or a negative. Then we have floating points. So if we have a value that is in decimal points, then we will call it as floating point value. And we have already learned about Booleans, where we have true, false, 0, 1, yes, no, whatever, where we have the outcome in maximum two ways, right? Either true or false. And then we have strings. Yeah, you have already printed out hello world so far. So hello world is also a string. String is denoted by these quotation marks, two quotation marks, sometimes one quotation mark as well. So yeah, let's start from integers and let's cover all of these data types one by one. Okay, let's go to our coding screen. Now, we want to initialize a variable, right? So let's initialize our first variable. You have to remember only three things while initializing a variable. First of all, the name of a variable, right? So let's say my name of a variable is going to be a number, okay? Number. And then I'll say the number is going to be 10, right? Okay. So two things. One is the variable name. Second thing is the variable value, right? These two things are important. So we have learned two things. The third thing is assignment operator, this equal to sign. In mathematics, this equal to sign refers to left-hand side is equal to right-hand side. But in programming languages, or in almost all the programming languages, it is not an equal to operator. Equal to operator is denoted by some other symbol. We will learn about that later on. But this equal to sign, the mathematical equal to sign, is referred as assignment operator in Python, right? What do we mean by assignment operator? As the name suggests, it assigns the value on right-hand side to the variable on left-hand side. Let me repeat. Now, you have to recall our last video where we can store the data in the memory cells of the brain. So if I want to store 10 in the brain cell called number, okay, the address of this brain cell is number, right? This is the address of that. unique address of that brain cell, right? I want to store 10 in number. I will use equal to operator, or technically assignment operator. It is not called equal to operator in programming. It is called assignment operator. If I will not use assignment operator, it will not be assigned to this particular variable, right? So if I run it, if I hit run button and nothing happens, why? Because I have just stored this value in this variable. I have not printed it out. So if I want to print it out, I'll say print. And here inside these brackets, I will write number, the name of this variable. Remember, I have named this variable in lowercase. So if I will write number in lowercase, that will actually denote the number that I have just created. But if I'll write it something like number with capital N, or if I'll write it like number, all the letters in capitals, these all are different variables. They all refer to some different memory locations. But since we have not created those memory locations, so they are just junk over here. So the thing is, these variable names are case sensitive, right? So if you have created the variable in lowercase, you'll have to call it with the lowercase. So if I run it, there we go. So we have printed our first variable. You might be wondering that here we have used the quotation marks, right, inside the print statement, but here we have not used the quotation marks. The thing is, whenever you are going to print out any variable name, you will not use the quotation marks. Quotation marks are only used for strings, not for variables. We will talk about strings in detail later on as well, right? So here we go. We have stored the value in our first variable, in the first variable of our Python code, and then we have printed out that value as well, right? Let's go ahead and store another value, and let's call it number 2, okay? Okay, so by the way, if I do something like number and UMBER, yeah, number, and I'll store 20 into it, right? Now, if I run this line, okay, and then I run this line again, you see it is printing out 20. Why? Because initially at this line, 10 was stored in that memory location, which is called number. But at second line, 20 is also going to be stored at the same memory location. So it will replace the first value that was already there at that location. The first value at that same location was 10, but now 20 is replacing 10. That is why when I'm printing number, it is giving me 20, not 10, right? So the variable values can be updated as well. Not all of the variables, at least integers, can be updated, right? So whichever value we will assign to any variable at latest will be the value of that variable, right? Okay, great. So let's go ahead and create another variable that is going to be a floating point variable. Let's call it decimal. And the value is going to be 2.5, right? And now if I print it out here, I'll say print decimal. And if I run it, it gives me an error. It says name error. Decimal is not defined. So for this Python program, the decimal name or decimal identifier or decimal variable does not exist. Guess why? Because we never executed this cell before running this cell. Since this cell is calling out decimal variable, where are you? But here, where we are initializing the decimal variable, where the decimal variable is about to born, we never executed this cell, right? That is why the decimal variable, since it is never created, it is never born. So how can we call it? That is why we have an error over here. So first of all, let's run this cell. Now we will run this decimal cell. And here we go. Now without any error, it is working, right? So another lesson to learn. Whenever we create a variable or whenever we make any changes to any particular cell, we'll have to execute that cell. Otherwise, the changes will not be reflected into the memory or the later on coding scenario. That those changes will merely be visible to us, not to the program, not to the memory, right? So we have learned about two data types, numbers and decimals. In next video, we will learn about the other data types as well. But before that, we will spend some time on what are the operators that we can perform on these variables. For example, how we can add two numbers, how we can subtract two numbers, multiply, division, modulus, all these things. And one interesting thing is, right now we have written only 1, 2, 3, 4 cells. We have only 4 cells. But when we are working in the industry, we are working with, you can say, hundreds of thousands of lines of code. Sometimes we don't remember if any particular variable is integer, or it is a decimal, or it is a string, or what it is. So how to figure out what is the type of a variable? We will see in next video.